Security Council.
Nida, sorry to interrupt you. We're going to take you now live to a news conference being held following that emergency summit here in Doha. Qatari officials speaking. Let's listen in.
There was also today the GCC summit, and we are pleased to have among us Mr. Jasem Mohamed AlBudaiwi, the Secretary General of the GCC Council, and representative of the OIC, Mr. Yusuf Tubiya, the Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs, and the representative of the Arab League, Ambassador Hossam Zaki, the Assistant Secretary General, and the Cabinet Director. Today's summit and the meeting of the GCC summit has been a historic event that represents the unity of the Arab Islamic ranks. This took place in Doha upon the invitation of His Highness Sheikh Tamim, the Emir of Qatar, has shown clearly the spirit of solidarity among Arab and Muslims and their support of the state of Qatar following the blatant Israeli attack on the 9th of September. And we all appreciate that in the state of Qatar. At the outset, we would like to extend our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to all brothers from Arab and Islamic countries for their solidarity with the state of Qatar. The Arab and Muslim leaders have come together to express their unified stance against the Israeli attack on Qatar. They asserted that the attack on an Islamic and Arab country and member of the UN is an unprecedented escalation and a threat to international peace and security. This emergency summit in Doha is not an emergency summit, but a message to the entire world that as Arab and Islamic countries, we reject any aggression, and we assert that the Palestinian cause would remain central until the Palestinian people regain their full rights. There were two statements by the GCC summit and one by the Arab Islamic summit, and I believe that we shall go into detail by the colleagues, but what we would like to assert that these statements clearly denounce the attack and asserted that the Israeli justifications and actions are unacceptable, as evidenced in the statements of their majesties and their highnesses and their excellencies, who asserted clearly that all these justifications for this blatant and wanton attack is lacking any ethics and lacking any justifications and are run counter to the international law and measures. And we have received various steps in order to build upon them regarding Arab Islamic action. Allow me to give the floor to the GCC Secretary General.
Council, thank you, Dr. Ansari, for this introduction. First of all, I would like to thank His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of the State of Qatar, and also the government and the people of Qatar for their hospitality here at the sisterly state of Doha, and for also hosting the Arab Islamic Summit that looked into the aggression against Qatar by the Israelis. Of course, this was a high-level summit that we've witnessed in both the extraordinary session of the GCC Council, but also the Arab Islamic Summit, which reflects the importance that Qatar play as a state, and also all the considerations that we have for our beloved sisterly country, the state of Qatar, and how the whole community, international community, stood with Qatar during this unprecedented attack. And we are here to support the state of Qatar, and it only reflects one thing, which is our sincere love and friendship and solidarity for this small state state in size, but very big in consideration and for the role it plays. Now, I would like to mention briefly the outcomes of the extraordinary session of the Supreme Council of the Gulf Cooperation. The leaders and their highnesses have convened this extraordinary session of the Supreme Council of the Gulf Cooperation Council to show solidarity with the state of Qatar against the Israeli attacks against the state of Qatar. We have also confirmed that the Supreme Council has condemned in the strongest terms the Israeli attack against Qatar that targeted residential houses in Qatar, and they described it as a dangerous escalation and also a blatant violation of international law and the Charter of the United Nations, and also destabilizing the region. The leaders have also confirmed that the GCC Council and the security of the Council is also part of the security of one state. So if one state is being attacked, the whole Council is being attacked. We have also confirmed in this declaration and this final statement that their highnesses and the leaders of the Supreme Council and also the High Military Council to convene an urgent meeting in Qatar in Doha in order to consider and assess the situation and the steps and measures to be taken. As you know, the joint military cooperation is a measure or a mechanism that has been established since the establishment and the foundation of the Council in 1981. There is also a joint military cooperation agreement through which we work, and we have witnessed over the last years how the Gulf military forces have played an important role in protecting the countries of the Gulf Cooperation countries, especially when Iraq has invaded Kuwait, and how we all stood and support Kuwait, and we remember the role that the state of Qatar played and how it conducted wonderful and extraordinary military operations. There was also a call for everyone to be responsible and also to assume all their responsibilities to put an end to such aggressions, because it hinders the regional and international stability. The statement also valued the quick and swift response of the military forces in Qatar in order to protect the civilians. We have also confirmed that the Gulf Cooperation Council that such aggression would hinder the role that Qatar plays as a mediator. We have also we called upon all the countries to condemn those terrorist attacks in Qatar and in Palestine, also including the targeting of civilians, the press, and also the medical teams, and we called for the end of such aggressions. I will stop here and will wait for your questions. Thank you. Now I give the floor to the OIC Secretary General and spokesperson. In the name of God, the most merciful, first of all, I would like to convey the thanks of OIC to all the media members and journalists who were here present to cover this important event. And I would like also, in this regard, in the name of OIC, to thank His Highness the Emir of the State of Qatar, and also to His Highness the Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also all the responsible and officers at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar, who, since we arrived here, we've been working in close coordination in order to prepare for this summit and for the works of this conference as well. As you know, you are also well aware, and you have been able to see the final statement that was issued after the at the end of this urgent summit, and it was very timely, coming right after the attacks against Qatar on September 9. Qatar, which is a Gulf and Arab nation, an Arab state, and an Islamic state also. And as you know, it's also a member of the OIC and plays an important, an active role in political, humanitarian, and also educational topics. As you know, also, you have mentioned the number and the important presence of several leaders and head of states from the Arab and Islamic states, which confirms also and sends an important message to the whole world that Qatar, we cannot attack Qatar or the sovereignty of Qatar. And it's a state that plays an important role as a mediator that was agreed upon by the international community, especially regarding the events in Gaza. This message is a message of solidarity. It's a message of support. And also, through this message, we support all the measures taken by the state of Qatar in order to face what has the attacks that the state of Qatar has faced. All the Arab states have shown the solidarity to the state of Qatar after what happened on September 9. And also, there was a clear message sent to the world that says that the safety and stability of the lands and territories of any Arab or Islamic state is important, as was demonstrated by all the Arab Islamic states, showing that there are some red lines that could not be crossed at any moment or under any circumstances. Also, one paragraph stands out in this final statement that was issued in collaboration or cooperation with the state of Qatar and also the Arab League members, is the civic and civilized behavior of Qatar while dealing with such attack. This shows the presence and the diplomatic acts of Qatar and how it continues to commit to the international laws and traditions. We are providing mediation and we are committed to international law and everything that is issued within international law and all the international and diplomatic practices. However, on the other hand, the other party is treating us as Arab and Muslims and differently. OIC, of course, and I will stop here and will not delve into the Arab or Islamic states, but what I can say is that the Arab or the Islamic world and all those who are aware of all the statements of the OIC can see the support that is shown and expressed to the state of Qatar in different events, especially the role that Qatar plays and that we need in our region and in our Arab world, which is the role of mediation. And when we read the literature of the international law and the mechanisms of peacefully resolving issues, is to have good practices and diplomatic practices. However, when these or this principle is being broken, is completely demolished, then we are ruled by the law of jungle. And to conclude, if you allow me, I would like to talk about the Palestinian cause, which is at the heart of the topics discussed at the OIC, and it's also a permanent clause in our agenda at the organization, whether at the level of the summit or at the level of the ministers of foreign affairs. It has been duly covered. If you can read the final statement, you can see that it has been covered. And also we discussed the barbaric attack against the state of Qatar. However, the Palestinian cause is always present, whether at the level of OIC or at the GCC level or the Arab League. And thank you for listening. Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for OIC for the extraordinary efforts exerted to make this summit a success and for issuing the final statement. Now I give the floor to the spokesperson of the Arab League. Thank you, my dear brother. And after all the introductions and the statements that have been delivered, the Arab League was honored by the invitation sent by the State of Qatar to organize and attend this big and important summit. As we heard from the different spokespersons, it's a very important summit as it sends a message to the world saying that Qatar is not standing alone. Qatar enjoys an a wide Arab Islamic support. You, as press member and media members, you have listened to the different interventions and statements delivered by the different leaders, presidents, and heads of delegations. All these statements expressed the solidarity and the support of these states with Qatar in these exceptional circumstances. In this regard, I'd like to add several points have been expressed in the statements delivered by the different leaders and heads of states and heads of delegations. First of all, is the condemnation of attacking and targeting a mediator and a negotiator. The role of mediation and negotiation plays two important roles in any conflict, and we need to maintain these two roles, and we should never attack or target these roles. Qatar plays a role of mediation in this dossier, and it's a well-received mediation together with the State of Egypt and also the United States. This role should be preserved and protected. The mediation, in fact, is important and should not be targeted or attacked by any party. Another point that was not reflected in the final statement, however, it was mentioned and included in several statements delivered by the heads of states and heads of delegations regard the situation and the barbaric role of the State of Israel. Some can see it as a fait accompli. However, what happened to Qatar and the aggression that targeted Qatar is stated clearly and described clearly and shows to the world our stance as being a clear stance that this State of Israel is not respecting and violating international law and is acting in a way that is not civilized and is not accepted in any form. These statements were present in several remarks delivered by the heads of delegations and heads of states today. To conclude, I would like to say that the event was important and the presence was also important. And we think that the outcome of this summit are very important and in line with the circumstances in which we have found ourselves. And I invite you to look in this final statement, as it includes also elements of the stance of the Arab Islamic states, which makes us also feel comfortable and confident, because the Arab Islamic stance is a clear and a firm position and united position. Before opening the floor for questions, we would like to say that we would like to stick to all what we agreed upon when it comes to questions. As you know, everyone is very tired as they worked tirelessly for the last 2 days. So please, we respect these instructions. Abdullah Ruiz, Al-Ikhbariya from Saudi. What are the practical and concrete measures that will be immediately taken after the end of this summit? Second, we have agreed that there will be one question for each journalist. Please stick to the instructions. I wish that we had the opportunity to read and to go through this, that you go clearly and in detail through the statements, but I can assure you that there are some mechanisms, ongoing mechanisms that we established since October 7, including the ministerial committee. And you know exactly what this committee has taken as measures in regard to the Palestinian cause. And of course, there will be another discussion at the United Nations General Assembly that will discuss the attack. And all this is the fruit of the efforts of the Arab Islamic leaders. So the mechanisms are there, they are ongoing. So when you read the statement that include more than 125 paragraphs and clauses, you will find all the mechanisms.
Keir Simmons from NBC News. Your Excellencies, I apologize, I can't ask a question in Arabic, but while you were meeting, Secretary of State Rubio stood with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the Israeli Prime Minister continued to justify the strike and said it sent a message to Hamas. And the US Secretary of State did not criticize Israel in public. What have you been told the White House message has been to Israel behind closed doors? And what assurances do you expect to receive from Secretary Rubio tomorrow when he arrives here about the future relationship with Israel?
Thank you. I assume the question is to Qatar directly, not to... First of all, let me say very clearly when it comes to the justifications of the attack and the aggression on my country. Using justification like sending a message to a group you have been actively talking to in order to get an agreement, to get your citizens back, the hostages, and shooting the mediator at the same time, sends a very clear message to the international community. First of all, that you don't care about your own hostages. Second, that you don't care about international law or international rule-based order. And third, you don't care about mediation and the act of peace facilitation, which is a thing that you have been, as a country, involved in, here, of course, talking about Israel for the past 2 years. For us here in Qatar, we have been engaging very closely with the Trump administration. As you said, Secretary Rubio is expected to be here in Doha tomorrow to meet with Qatari officials. His Excellency the Prime Minister, in his visit to both New York and DC, had very excellent meetings with his counterparts over there and the American Vice President and the American President, of course. And we are having discussions over the next steps on what to do with this. But our message is very clear. This is an aggression that we will not accept. This is an aggression that we will actively work towards making sure that it is deterred and doesn't happen again. And the sentiment and the solidarity today by all the leaders of the Arab and Muslim world speaking here in Doha, the capital today of Islamic and Arab solidarity, was very clear. The actions of Prime Minister Netanyahu, the actions of his state, will not go without being in the eye of the international community for us to take actions to make sure that they don't happen again. And we are doing this as we speak. So I'll start it. تفضل معي ومفتوح للزملاء.
Add one thing to it's actually one sentence. We also expect our strategic partners in the United States to use their influence on Israel in order for it to stop this behavior. We really do expect that. They have leverage and influence on Israel, and it's about time that this leverage and influence to be used. Thank you.
شكرا. إبراهيم تفضل. تفضل.
صهيب العصا قناة الجزيرة.
صهيب العصا الجزيرة. Hossam Zaki, you told us that we need to read through the lines through the final statement. In point 15, there was a call for reconsidering the relations and trade relations with Israel. Is there a real invitation or call to cut all diplomatic and commercial or trade relations with Israel? Is there any real push towards such a measure, to take this direct measure? Thank you. I understand this paragraph as an open invitation to all the states who have or maintain such relations or ties to reconsider. As a result, it's not a compulsory or a binding clause. However, it opens the door and it gives the opportunity to all the members of the OIC or the Arab League to reconsider and to take such measures or steps if they see that it is an important step that should be taken. This means that this paragraph is opening or paving the way to taking such a measure. We have listened to the Arab media specifically, to all the measures and steps. I think you talked about pragmatic or practical steps that we can take. I think this is an example. If any country sees that it should take such measures, so this paragraph or this clause would encourage and pave the way to take such a measure if they deem it necessary. And if this materializes, I think that this should be in itself also a letter or a message, not only to the state of Israel, but to the whole world in general, saying, in other words, that there might be a new chapter that should start it with the Israeli state. Last question to Reuters.
Hi, Jana Shahed, Reuters. Mr. Majed, why has the summit not taken steps towards pushing countries into severing diplomatic and economic ties with Israel? And Mr. Secretary,
just one question, sorry. You can't ask two questions.
Okay, if the joint GCC Defense Council has been active for all these years, why didn't it defend Qatar when the attack happened on September 9th?
Defend it in what sense? I don't. When you have a surprising attack, when you use technology that is stealth, when you use other leverages, it's not a fair game, it's not a fair war, it is a cowardly attack. And a cowardly attack, when somebody stabs you in the back, you don't have eyes on your back. You expect that you have done something that prevents you from getting stabbed by this barbaric government. It is a stab in the back.
So the defense system is not operative 24/7? Is this what the countries are looking into?
It is a question to be addressed to the Ministry of Defense in Qatar, because the attack happened in Qatar. So you can retrieve this question to them.
Thank you. By this we thank عفوا حاولت على الإنجليزي. نشكر معالي جاسم محمد البداوي الامين العام لمجلس التعاون دول الخليج العربيه، سعاده السفير يوسف الباعي الامين العام لمساعده الشؤون السياسيه
Secretary General of the GCC, and also the spokesperson, His Excellency the Ambassador at the OIC, and also the the spokesperson of the Arab League. We thank all those who are present. We thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Well, you've been watching there a press conference taking place, rounding out the day on an emergency summit of leaders of Gulf, Arab and Islamic countries taking place here in Doha following Israel's attack in Doha last Tuesday. Speakers there included the Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesman, Dr. Majed al-Ansari, and senior officials from the Gulf Cooperation Council, the organisation of the Islamic Conference, and the Arab League. Dr. Ansari condemning Israel's blatant and wanton attack. The Secretary General, the OIC Secretary General, talking about Monday's emergency summit, sending an important message to the world of our solidarity and our support for Qatar, and an expression of hope from the Arab League spokesperson that America, the United States, would now be encouraged to use its leverage to rein Israel in. Well, let's